Welcome to the module called iMTF Investment Strategy. As we mentioned in the iMTF elements, you could use any of the graphical objects, the crosses or these circled dots, as investment tools as long as there's a real bar. We're now going to take those tools and form a strategy behind it. So the rules for the investment strategy is the same as the iMTF strategy, except no orders are printed on the chart. That means we're not going to give you a blue entry dot or a red. You have to do things manually. This is done because anything can happen with price with investment strategy. So for the entry, here is what you're going to do. For bullish, previous bar high plus a buffer. Bearish, previous bar low minus a buffer. Conditional stop, bullish, previous bar high, low minus a buffer. And for bearish, previous bar high plus a buffer. For trade management, you're still going to go for the 2-bar evaluation. The big difference is on the 3rd bar, where you typically go to break even. Now you have a choice to go to break even. You don't have to, because this is more of an investment type of trade. Let's go for an example of the investment strategy. Before we begin the investment strategy, 2 key things to note. At any point in the trade, price could pull back to the investment element. That's the first thing to know. Second thing, if you fail the 2-bar validation process, then your probability to come back to that investment element is also high. So remember those 2 things as we walk through some examples. Here's a gray cross, perfect candidate for a investment strategy. The entry would be previous bar high plus a buffer. Conditional stop would be previous bar low minus a buffer right there. You entered. You passed bar 1 because it was profitable. Now remember, difference is in timing in the iMTF strategy, you have momentum on your side. Doesn't mean you have that on the investment strategy. So the 2nd bar or any bar after that can pull back to this investment element. In this scenario, it did, and you got stopped out on the 2nd bar. Also, if you got stopped out and it hadn't come already here, you know from the rule of when you fail a 2-bar validation, it has a high probability to come here, and that's exactly what it did. Here at the beginning of the bar, the cross was here. And this is hard because this looks like a bearish opportunity, but at some point it got above the cross and this became a bullish cross. But the problem is the rules say use the previous bar high plus a buffer as your entry. You're up here and you're trying to enter here. That does not work. So in this situation, there's no way you could enter at all. Here you have another investment cross here. You're looking to enter in the previous bar high plus a buffer. You did. This bar was profitable, so you stay in this trade. 2nd bar was real. You passed the 2-bar validation. When you pass the 2-bar validation, the probabilities to come back to the investment element here become low. Here's another example here. You have an investment cross. You had one here, it passed the 2-bar validation, that's fine. But then you had another one here, you had a timing element here, and you had another investment cross. You had an investment cross here, and notice one thing, you were profitable here in this trade because it did come back to this level right there, and you were profitable. 2nd bar failed the 2-bar validation. Notice it came to this level here, but it never came back to that level at all. This failed the 2nd bar here, so believe it or not, this now has a high probability to come back to here eventually. So you have to evaluate each time you have a cross, evaluate if it passes the 2-bar validation. If it doesn't, believe it or not, it has a high probability to come back to that cross, which is right there. Let's go back to this trade here. Notice we entered here, it passed the 2-bar validation, so there's low probability to come here. Now remember, I said you have to evaluate every cross. Over here, this was real. So now this makes it a potential investment cross. This right there, since it was real. 2nd bar was not real. So now you have a high probability to come back to that cross right there, and that's exactly what it did.